Hello and welcome our lovely YouTube audience. Welcome to an inspirational talk show by Gupshup to Inspire. I'm Vikas, your host for the show today, and I will take you through some real informative discussion on the topic India's economy amidst the global economic scenario. Yeah, it's a big one. The inspirational guest who is present today as our speaker is a veteran industry luminary, Mr. Shinto Joseph. I welcome you, Shinto, wholeheartedly.
Thanks, Vikas. Nice to join your session.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Shinto. So I'll just give you a brief introduction about Shinto of the large introduction that is available. And maybe Shinto can talk about more. But I think what I know about Shinto more is an industry luminary for maybe a decade, more than a decade, 23 years of experience, 15 years of CXO level experience, an entrepreneur who joined an MNC. Then he is leading the entire Southeast Asia nation for LDRA Technologies as a director, and he has been instrumental in putting the country. He has been instrumental in putting the company to the front runner now. And today we see he being a guest for us is a guest of honor, and we will definitely cherish the experience that he carries, and we'll try to put forward and understand how Indian economy is currently today, how it was, what it would be in the future, and what exactly is this entire discussion that we can do about understanding in detail and depth about the situation, and then we can take a lot of thoughts and inputs with some questions which could be directed to Shinto out of experience. So Shinto, I have actually prepared some kind of a small gist of what has happened in the last 10 years. So I would like to start with the last 10 years of the episode,
Sure.
exactly the scenario has been. So you can check me wherever you want me to kind of add on more from your expertise, or you can make it richer. But right now, this is what I have, Shinto.
Please, what I will do is I'll just listen to you and then I'll see what I can add to whatever you say. Yeah, please.
So in 2008, I'm starting from 2008, a great economic recession. Most of us were facing job cuts, and it was probably banking driven from US, and there was a complete global slowdown happened. Lehman Brothers and all those stories were there, and we know what happened then. We also know that this caused multiple triggers in the global economy. Your Greek crisis started, which was more of a turmoil from the world side of a great recession, structural weakness of the Greek economy, lack of monetary policy. So that zone was completely getting darker. Spain entered into a crisis period in the year 2012. So periodically, that 2008 recession had its impact continuously spreading across in different geographies. The GDP of Spain published down. Then we had 2014, the great Brazilian crisis. We all know about it. The GDP fell from a 5% to percent, and that's how exactly the things happened. And then we had this Brexit, 2016, 2017. We had this Brexit coming in, and 2018. Then you have this trade war of China and United States that also came in between. Now, all of this, we were trying to settle down. We were trying to figure out how the world will be over, what exactly things will be, kind of moved to a better place. And we did do some better aspects as well. Barring India and China, I believe most of the countries were not doing that great, but we were somewhere managing 5+% of our GDP growth. But then came 2020, and that's the story now. We are into one of the biggest recessions or depression that we have seen probably in the last 100 years. And that's where exactly this question arose of the uncertainty of what's going to happen next, how exactly we have fared in the last 10 years, or maybe beyond, and then what's the future, how exactly we can hold it up. So Shinto, kind of understanding here from you, what are your thoughts about this entire episode that has gone into making of it?
Good. I think you set the stage right. And what I would do is, I think for most of these problems, what we are seeing, we normally see the symptoms. A normal scenario in today's world is we treat the symptoms, and we probably miss the root cause. So I am coming from an industry or background. I always do anything whenever I get into, we call it something called root cause analysis. What is the root cause of every problem? If there is a failure happening also, we need to go back. There's a branch of study itself called, root cause analysis. So let me take you guys back to the World War era. So there was a destruction, and post-World War, say go back to 1945 time frame. So US came to a very prominent position, and the allies and tried to set the world new order and make sure that no more a world war. That was the dream of the people.
Yep.
I think they did a good job in setting the things order, and as part of that, they also came up with a new world order, especially to fuel the growth of world economy. So you could see the so-called Bretton Woods twins, IMF and World Bank, coming into picture, and countries agreeing to peg dollar as the base currency for transactions. And thereafter, you will see a totally different US, a complete run on their economy, basic boom happening. So eventually, that led to the Cold War era. So you whatever in our society, we say that whenever there is one-sided approach or two-sided approach, you can always see some repercussions. So that, I would say, the seeds of Cold War was there in the settlements of Second World War itself.
Agreed.
So there itself it started, and eventually you see the game plan between the American side, allies, and the Russian side, the old USSR. It continued, and that was a time, see, the industry 3.0 picked up, where the mass manufacturing, automation, those kind of things started getting into, which some countries started understanding this. How do we automate things and produce things in a mass way? Somewhere towards the end of 60s, 70s, they found that the people are always greedy, right? We want more growth, more wealth, and some of the understanding towards currency printing factors fueling the growth of economy slowly getting started. For example, we had this concept of when you print currency, you need to have this much gold reserve or any other kind of reserves.
Yep.
And the general understanding. Pardon?
That was the basis of the entire currency printing.
Yeah. So we all agreed that when you print currency, you need to have some base. And slowly, some countries they said no. There are other means also to print currency. Thanks to Americans, they had the currency advantage. So probably they were one of the first ones who broke the rules.
Yeah.
Okay. But then they had the advantage, the currency basket game. And towards further, when you go, you see one more interesting game. People further wanted to fuel the growth. So then the concept of debt-driven growth started kicking in. So it means you can afford to take more debt, provided if it is helping us to grow. So till then, the concept was a little more of savings-oriented economics principles. Now, once the debt-oriented growth started driving, it took a different turn altogether. And much of the evils what you are seeing today goes back to that debt-driven growth, where
Absolutely.
no logic. I mean, my GDP would be $100, say, but then I can borrow $200,
Yeah.
$300, and still you're not happy.
You're hinting towards Americans, I believe. You're hinting towards more of them.
No, not exactly. Even not only, even Europe also. They also went to the extent of, we have some European countries where the debt ratio is 1:3.
Yeah.
We have Japan, which is nearing 1:3. They already 1:2 plus, and very soon I think they will be 1:3.
I had an instance when somebody was informing me from economics that US has $18 trillion of debt as compared to the $21 trillion of economy. So that's also there as compared to kind of China or anybody else who is growing at a good pace, but then they do not have that kind of a debt there. So you're very correct in highlighting that this trillion growth was there, which was triggered, and that was the basis of this new thing.
So that is one aspect. It doesn't stop there.
Yeah, it doesn't.
It doesn't stop there. So when you are questioning the existing foundation of economic principles, this is what actually basic economics we all studied in our school and college days.
True.
And to be frank, I was so lucky way back in 90. There's a time I was in my first year engineering. Those are the days, concepts like, GATT, WTO, the global village, global trade, those kind of things started getting into the play. And luckily or unluckily, I don't know, 1990 was a crucial period for our country, India. So we went through the financial crisis, balance of payment issues. We had to surrender our gold reserves to get some dollars in. And
thanks to
but every problem, every problem, according to me, brings new opportunities also.
Yep.
So we unleashed the so-called economic reforms.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and I'll come back to that part also maybe at some point of time. What worked that time and probably what is not working today.
Thank you.
Okay, so this is a phase where world started getting into a concept of cost-based production, cost-based service business models. So economies of scale, how to manufacture means maximize wealth. So that was the whole concept behind it. So to explain further, that if the X country has got an advantage of skills, say example India, world realized India has got a skill pool. Let's depend on India for services. IT sector came up because of that thought process. They also identified countries like China. Oh, okay, they are able to produce things at a very cost-effective way. Let's start sourcing materials, finished goods from China. Nothing wrong because it worked. It worked for quite some time.
Absolutely.
And the parties who are propagating these principles also gained immensely. Wealth creation has happened because it had its own justification. But then over a period, what has happened is the turning point would be China getting into WTO. Till then, they were outside of WTO and they were admitted inside WTO. The moment they became a member of WTO, they go by the WTO rule book. Means nobody can stop their goods as far as it fits into the safety standard, quality standards. You can't say no to a Chinese good. So of course there are conditions under WTO which will help you, but then the existing norms allow them free hand to ship products wherever they want. And I would say this is something many countries utilize it also. I mean, I never blame anybody for whatever has happened. It was the right decision at that point of time. But every decision, so every decision we make in life, we say, it is right at that point of time. It is not wrong always. So it was right, and probably people didn't know probably the inherent internal flows in that decision. Okay, and they went like that. And if you look at 90s for Indian economy, we unleashed the reforms, and a lot of investments started coming in. For example, this is a country which blocked imports of computers. There was a time when I was in college in 1990 time, the import duty was 250% for computers. Who will buy?
Who will buy?
So most of the computers were coming into India was through grey market assembled products. When I say grey market, duty not paid. Okay. So so my first computer which I took in my hostel with my friends was one of those grey products.
I feebly remember those days.
And good part is today, most of these products are not under grey channels. We can get goods and services in India through right channels, which is probably a good decision we did. And we also got a lot of structural changes done in our economy. A lot of investments started coming in. I still remember the leather Pepsi. Those were things we had actually sent out to Coca-Cola and IBM long back.
Yeah.
This is a country which we did that.
Yeah.
And suddenly we are calling them back.
Please come.
IBM came back with the philosophy of Tata IBM. And today, fortunately, the interesting part is I sit in the same building Tata IBM was operating.
Oh.
The first, the re-entry time building.
Okay. Okay.
So for me, it is a great memory, see that progress, how the country evolved over a period. One more thing happened during this period. China, as I told you, they massively scaled up their manufacturing capabilities. India also tried to do, but then in that process, what has happened is our exports picked up to from only 15 to 20% per annum growth rate, which is a phenomenal achievement.
Yeah, of course.
And at some point of time, you will find that growth rates in exports slowly getting saturated. Started seeing tough competition from the Chinese.
Yeah.
And so they started flexing their capabilities in manufacturing, and we losing out even our domestic economy to Chinese goods. So we lost out in some markets, not only the Indian market, the overseas markets also. So this is in the back end. This is one side of the story. And further to that, as I told you, the depth-driven growth philosophy continued at some point of time. And to be frank, these are all, according to me, these are all inorganic way, which is beyond the law of natural growth or natural law of justice or whatever you call it.
Perspective of inorganic.
Yeah, I mean, some people call it unethical. I don't know, but then means
that word.
I have only.
Yeah, I like that word when you said inorganic. So I like that word, in fact.
Okay, and when some people say unethical means I have only 100 rupees. How can I borrow 200 rupees?
Yeah.
Because I'm sure that this 100 rupees is not good enough to pay you back.
True.
So unknowingly, I'm borrowing more.
Awesome. So, that's the concept. Yeah.
Okay. Knowingly, I know that I cannot pay you back. I keep borrowing.
Correct.
So once it went to an effect where debt-driven growth or debt-driven sustainability is the way forward plan, what has happened is one more interesting twist has happened in this whole drama. Capital market, normally, if you go by the economics principle, whatever I studied, it is a replica of economy, domestic economy or global economy.
Very
the capital market, those finance guys they do this technical analysis and fundamental analysis.
Yeah, true.
Okay? Fundamental analysis is basically the long-term health and growth potential for that industry, whichever sector which is operating. Technical analysis is mostly driven by sentiments which may not last for a longer period.
Correct.
So if you go by that principle, the capital markets should be ideally being driven by the basic economic principles of the country, whichever country the capital market operates.
Absolutely.
That was the principle earlier. Today, if you look at the world, okay, you will find some interesting observations, particularly in the post-COVID era when entire manufacturing is shut. But in some countries, the stock market is zooming. Okay.
Agree.
See the interesting game happening, and why that is happening. So you go back to some more interesting backdoor games. If you look at the 10 years or 15 years back, what was the role of central banks? Central banks where the job of the central bank was to regulate the other banks and give policy guidelines. They used to stop there. They never entered into the actual banking business. Okay, they make sure that the monetary policies are intact, the SLR and CRR ratios are met with the bank as well as with the RBI, and they also keep some reserves. So this is and more at the 50,000 feet policy guidelines. That's the role of central bank. Look at last 10 years what has happened to central banks. Central banks are being taken over by respective governments.
Yeah.
Okay, across the globe,
Yeah.
across the globe,
Yeah.
and I hardly see any country an exception where the old era of central bank way of working. So once the governments, why the government took over or started dictating or giving directions to central bank was they know the problems what is on the table is not solvable by normal techniques.
True. Yes. Yes.
So the only party who can fuel growth right now is central bank. So what do? They can print currency.
Yeah.
They can buy out bad debts. They can form, a bad bank.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. And
Too much in news. This bad banks things is too much.
okay. So they have ultimate powers,
Yeah.
and they can even pump money into the regional banks
Mm.
and tell them, I'm giving you X dollars, X rupees, but I want you to put in this project. Okay? See what is happening?
Yeah.
Earlier, the bank used to evaluate the project. Now the central bank is saying, I'm giving you money. You put it, but I'm giving you a guarantee. So you print currency. I'm printing currency. Yeah? You whatever you want, you take it. Okay? And tomorrow, you are not happy with the currency. I'll take it back.
Yeah.
I'll take it back and I will burn it, whatever you want. So this interesting game is happening in the back end. And to be frank, common man is totally confused. The traditional economists are scratching their head.
So in fact, forget about a monetary or a fiscal policy. Today, a common man who probably would just like to go for a job and earn and do a saving is also completely confused in this entire ecosystem of banking, savings, consumption, inflation. And these are some basics which we deal with every day. And that's really concerning. If you really look at, and I'm not talking only from India's perspective, globally, I have seen this as a trend that the kind of people today, the confusion that they are carrying in terms of all of these changing scenarios in economics, I mean, that can really trigger out a demand and supply and consumption cycle completely off gear. You really cannot actually talk about those in sitting in a household of what exactly would be your money value after 5 years. How can you plan your retirement? What do you want to buy in a car, or maybe you want to invest in
Yeah.
something?
You touched the right point. Okay, when growth happens when people put in their money on the table, invest.
Yeah.
Okay, and with this confusion triggering, more and more people are becoming very conservative.
Yeah.
Okay, and when people go on a conservative mode, that adds to the economic problems. To be frank, if you really want an economy to grow, any economy, it is not only for Indian scenario. Especially, I'm talking about an economy like India. If it is a socialistic economy where, we say socialistic economy is somebody, we say there's a definition, all are equal, but some are more equal. Okay, that is one definition.
That's one difference.
Advantage. And they can detect everything.
Yeah.
But in today's democratic world where a country like India or even the Western countries where they're living, there the private spending and common man's consumer mindset matters a lot. If they don't consume, they don't spend, naturally it doesn't grow the economy in the right direction.
Yep.
So the most important thing at this point of time, I agree with what you said, that there is a confusion, and confusion at all levels. Confusion with even central banks are also confused. Okay, banks are confused, and the investors in stock market, they're confused, and the corporates across the globe, they are also confused. They don't know what to do.
True.
So the existing the rules book of the game before COVID itself. That is the interesting part. COVID is an icing on the cake.
Yeah.
It is probably a complete disruptor, or whatever you call it.
True.
Complete disruptor for economy, complete disruptor for organizations, complete disruptor for trust, relationships, everything. So this is a holistic problem that which probably people need to address from a I use the word holistic picture, something which we both studied in Christ. This word.
Yeah.
When I look back, what is missing in the context today is probably many of our policymakers across the globe are discussing this issue in isolation from a skewed perspective, from his angle, but then probably they are not seeing the larger picture. And I believe we need two approaches for especially in today's context. If you look at the global perspective, I think you can go through the World Economic Forum's the Great Reset. I think you would have gone through that scenario. Great Reset is it's a right context for all of us, making us to think that what is that we should do going forward. Are we doing the right thing? Questioning the questioning process itself. I mean, this is where concepts like design thinking helps us. Finding out new innovative ways, which the roads and ways which we have never walked in the past, and go back even to Mother Earth and question ourselves: are we doing the right thing for this world? We have been consuming more, probably in the wrong direction, without even leaving anything for our next generation. Because there are a lot of those talks happening. Sustainable development post-COVID era. Which actually is now people are having time. This is the time to think about where, according to me, I think the coming part. We can discuss more about that. What could be the way forward plan? So my perspective on the whole thing is the problems are at a multi-faceted. Some are globally driven, some are locally thing. But then, as a country, we probably need to take some decisions which would be correct at this point of time. Tomorrow, somebody can say that was a wrong decision. That's okay. But then we probably need. I'm sure that is where actually leadership comes into picture. Yeah, this is the background. I think I added. I don't know whether I added more on the problem space or problem to the answer space.
In the entire story, and you enriched the last 10 years episode that I was talking about. You actually set up the base for the last 10 years, what happened, and probably that would set up the base for the next 7 questions that we have framed for you, Shinto. And I would love to give those questions to you and see your perspective there of how exactly we can get some inputs from you. So I'll take a couple of things from your last 2 minutes of conversation when you spoke about design thinking, when you spoke about some kind of a sustainable development, and you also spoke about going back to Mother Earth. You also spoke about having a holistic approach in terms of when we are talking about a growth and improvement. Now, considering all of this, my first question to you, Shinto, is what made India and China grow tremendously, even in an unpleasant global economy? What were those success factors for us? So how exactly you will define these two economies and their growth story, even though we know that the world was always in a little sad moment and last 10, 15 years has been a little topsy-turvy for all of us. But still, if two economies are able to clock a growth beyond 5%, I think we can call that out. Shinto, what exactly is your take?
We had an outstanding growth trajectory. I fully agree with you. And a couple of advantages which we had was, one is the demography, the youth. Both the countries had an young population. Youth normally brings in energy. To be frank, most of my friends are young guys. They make me charged up. And their way of thinking is totally different. And even in my office also, most of the IT crowd, tech crowd are mostly.
I feel like how energetic people would be there. So that's a different thing. We can definitely talk about it once more.
So the mindset of an young economy, brings in a lot more energy. That is the first thing. Second thing is, I think both these countries started investing on human capital. Is it sufficient, at least in the Indian context? I'm having doubts, but then little bit we invested on the human capital. So wherever you invest on human capital, naturally they start improving productivity. So we also started looking a little bit on outbound, as I call it. If you look at India as a country, we are culturally we going as an inward economy. If you go back to our Vedic philosophies also, we always used to say, look inward, see the Atma within us. Okay, that's if you look at yoga, all these things basically look inside rather than look outside.
Yeah.
So that is actually our traditional path. So we slightly started looking outbound, and probably China did further. So they had the cost advantage in manufacturing. We had the skill advantage in terms of services. So both countries had a different trajectory. Did both the countries follow the right path? Like n number of questions can be raised. For example, if you look at basic economic principle, after agriculture, somebody has to go to manufacturing, then to services. That is a natural progression of growth. We just skipped the manufacturing. We jumped from agriculture economy, we straight away went to service economy. Whereas the China then from agriculture to manufacturing. Now probably they are trying to add services or other factors on the top of it. So both the countries had different trajectories. And today, if you ask me what India is trying to do is fill that gap. We are trying to look at the manufacturing, missed the bus. We're trying to catch it now.
Sure.
So both had different trajectories. Both had cost advantages in these spaces. But then the interesting part today, where we are today, is both their dynamics or cost advantage are under questionable situation today. China's manufacturing was driven by primarily a disciplined labor force available at a throwaway salary.
Yeah.
Okay. Peanut salary was available to those people, and the world took advantage of it.
Yeah.
In our today's salary of an average Chinese labor, it is probably on an average 3 to 4 times of an Indian labor.
Absolutely.
Okay.
That's good.
Okay.
That's being a democratic, I think that's good area that we have.
So our labor salary levels are very low, whereas on the services front, in tech world, IT and all those things, our salary got multiplied.
Yeah.
So we have lost the salary, the cost advantage on our so-called service business.
Yeah.
IT is under question. I mean, our existing low-cost service provider, that is under question right now.
Yeah.
The IT sector is now looking at revamping their business models.
Correct.
So China has got another problem. The salary levels have gone up. They probably will relook the whole thing from a different angle.
Yeah.
Maybe they might automate the whole thing. That's what they might look at. Put AI, robots, those kind of things too. So for every country, the long-term survival depends upon, we call it finding the economic advantages.
Sure.
And for that country, and for example, I'll give you a classic example. US was facing a questionable time as far as their way forward time. That's the time they came with a tech boom. The boom driven by internet revolution has taken US economy to a different level at some point of time.
Correct.
Now they need to come up with something new to take that economy to the next level. So it is the responsibility of every country to come up with something that is taking their country to the next level. So we had one advantage, we took the advantage. China had that advantage, took it. Now, I think both the countries are back to square board to rethink what is the next go forward.
Yeah. So now, Shinto, this brings me to the exactly second question that we had for you. Was now we have seen these successes, we have seen those drawbacks that we also had. We had grown tremendously. Skill was in our favor. Manufacturing cost ability was in China's favor. We grew it well. We took the opportunity, and now we are at the thinking board. And now we have to think along what has to be done. Also, now we have COVID. Now we have this entire 2020 looking like it's being washed out. So with COVID-induced recession or depression or whatever you call, now what is the road to recovery? I mean, we are thinking and now we have to recover. So what do you think is the road to recovery for us?
Okay, for this, we probably need to understand the dynamics of COVID. And whenever a crisis happens, any crisis, it could be economic crisis, it could be a failure of business. There's a psychological philosophy called the Kobler effect, we call it. Means,
Polar effect.
what it means is, first you deny it, Second, you probably become angry with whatever has happened, and then probably we try to negotiate in between. You don't accept this for a longer period, you get into depression.
Yeah.
Longer the time you take to accept the reality, larger the problem.
Yeah.
So it is good that we accept this is a problem on the table which needs immediate attention.
True.
So for crisis management philosophy, if you look at it, the right path is, one is a quick fix for immediate problems.
Correct.
Second thing is, don't stop at the quick fix, because COVID will come and go. We have a country which needs to be taken to the next decade. So for that, we probably need to look at, find the inherent strengths and work with the long-term plan. Okay. So two approaches. One is the short-oriented, short cycle. Okay, this financial year, what do I do to reboot my economy?
Sure.
Parallelly, there should be a team working towards slightly with a long-term vision. Now, even I think I will take you to a couple of observations I have. There are some sectors which are booming, even in a COVID era. Let me see whether I can show you some, because this is of the sectors studies which we have done in the organization.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see the slide.
Okay, you can see the slide. So look at it. These are some of the sectors which are, these are all slides available in the public domain. You all can find it. Some sectors have really benefited out of it. Okay, some sectors are really suffering. So we probably need to look at, how to take advantage of this growing sectors, even for a techies also. For example, I put in medical itself. Each of the sectors also, if you go by, there are challenges. Also, for example, medical, if you go by, certain sectors are not doing well, like the ultrasound scanners, MRI machine, those kind of things are not doing well. But there are COVID-related, industries where there are a whole lot of action happening. So what? So then, if you go by, maybe I'll open up some more examples. So we also probably need to look at sectors that can pump energy to us.
Okay.
Let's look at this. If you look at fundamentally an Indian economy, these are our strengths traditionally. Okay. Going forward also, these are the sectors we should look at from a long-term perspective. I'll give you a couple of examples. Even when the IT went down, automotive was one sector, because I work in all these sectors, most of these sectors. Okay. Automotive was one sector which was catching up faster than to augment for whatever expected losses in the IT sector group. Sure. On the external front, I'm talking about. Yep. Automotive also produces a lot of jobs, because in a country like India today, the biggest challenge, if you ask me, anybody, my answer is, okay, economy is one aspect. The critical problem is jobs creation. Yeah. If you create jobs, actually, it drives the economy. If you go to countries like Australia, New Zealand, because I travel all these countries, what government is doing is they catch hold of young entrepreneurs and ask them how many jobs you can create. How many jobs can? Based on that, I will, okay, can you, okay, in Australia, I was talking to a guy. He said he had a plan to construct a home. So he approached the local municipality, and the local agency told him, if you move to another area, I'll give you 3 times of this land. I'll give you this benefit. But you have to do these things in that area. Will you do it? He said, great, yeah. I'm getting a wider area. And government is also saying that I will do a road free for you to this area. So it is actually, they are looking at, for them, somebody constructing a home is an entrepreneurial activity. Yeah. That triggers action in that belt. Yeah. So to the minute details, they're going and finding, ways. I was there in Malaysia, where they have a skill council, where they pool in money from, in Penang, I'm talking about, money from various sources. All the companies has to contribute every month X, money to this fund. So
Yeah.
this fund is available. So employees can go and take training, and their complete training expenses borne by this fund.
Wow.
So okay, so there are ways and means. Today, the Sector Skill Council, what we have, what government has created right now, they're trying to catch up in the skills game. You know, because I see this comparison. So we need to find our own way, especially in these areas. These are our traditional strongholds. Okay, and on the top, we also need to find the emerging game, like the AI. AI is going to be a big game. To be frank, if you look at what China is doing right now, China is outside the AI, the consortium which world has formed, where India and other 8, 9, 10 countries have taken lead in that.
Correct.
So I'm afraid, it would be at some point of China versus the rest of the world. It is already, that type of consortiums are getting formed.
Yeah.
So probably, one is build on the traditional world where we are traditionally strong, and then watch out for these new gen areas. Additionally, I think what we could do is, especially in the virtual world, people are working in a connected world. Government of India, if you look at it, they have been talking about digital India.
Yeah.
Digital India was a big success according to me, and we probably need to take the digital India to the next level.
Yeah.
How digital platforms can be used to empower the common man and make a common man as an entrepreneur. Because the real trigger in an economy is the entry level people. Unfortunately, we probably don't understand that part.
Shinto, it sometimes also makes me think that is it traditionally because we are job seekers and not job creators? All of us want a fat salary end of the month, enjoy our weekends, and try to live life with our family, working for 5 days and not work for 2 days. I mean, that's there ingrained in us. We don't want to push ourselves out of this entire blues and try to create something. So I personally was kind of giving a weightage on two different scenarios. Maybe a government initiative or a push or incentivization is not that great. Maybe that could be one reason. And other reason is that traditionally, since we have always been a colonial economy, somebody has always ruled us. We always love to have a boss on top of us, and then we work and we get paid and we are all through it. So maybe that could also be one area that we can think about maybe.
I fully agree with you. In fact, recently you would have seen I shared a video in my Facebook about English education system. I work for a British company. I'm proud of it.
Yeah.
In fact, to be frank, let me make it very clear that whatever I'm telling in this interview has nothing to do with my company. These are all my personal viewpoints.
Absolutely.
And I have a lot of regards for British, no doubt. I mean, they're very disciplined people. But however, I can't forgive them for what they did to my country, before the pre-independence era. English education, to be frank, why they started English education in our country? They wanted a couple of clerks who speaks English. Yeah. They wanted a couple of, their own men who will talk English and help them to run the country.
Correct.
Nothing else. They never had any other plans. So the education system in India was created. I have another slide, which I created internally. I'll come to that part, which was created, and I'll just take that part. Quite interesting slide, which I prepared recently. The education system was created. I think you can see the slides, right?
Yeah, I can see the slides.
Okay, it was created with the purpose of helping them to rule this country. So there's no question of critical thinking, creative thinking, nothing. This is a fundamental flaw in our system. This needs to be fixed. That I'm not talking about encourage Hindi or regional language or something. English can be still a medium of education, no doubt on that, because we are living in a globalized economy. So we need that language advantage. Today you want to interact with somebody. I'm okay if you go learn Chinese also, because in the world market you might still deal with people from China who might be happy to deal with we keep traveling to Taipei, so we have developed something called Tanglish, Taiwanese English.
Oh.
My colleagues are very good in that, so they survive there only with that Tanglish.
Okay.
because typical our English don't work there.
Ew.
They speak, they are Mandarin. Basically, they're also Chinese,
Okay.
originally from, right? So education system needs a complete reform. This is the time to reboot this country, reforming the education system. In fact, recently I was started doing a bit of study on higher education reforms.
Okay.
Reforms at all levels, reforms at the school level, where the current definition of teacher and student has to completely change. Where because I do conduct programs for teachers, disruptive ways of teaching, how to get into the minds of people, how to ignite the next generation in the traditional spoon feeding way of doing doesn't work. It is,
Correct.
and I was a troublemaker in all the classes wherever I studied. Okay, I used to ask questions,
Okay.
and but then those professors who liked my questioning attitude, I like those classes, and that is something which probably I still remember those professors who encouraged me, taking questions.
Sure.
And so in India, we are not trained to ask questions.
Yeah.
So this comes from our pedigree.
Yeah.
So we probably need to disrupt. A lot of investments need to be done on training, equipping our teachers in teaching methodologies, curriculum development. And many of the people don't understand there is a big difference between syllabus and curriculum. Because I do sit in a couple of universities, academic councils, where I see very positive discussions happening, differentiating between the curriculum. So education reform is a very important thing which we need to do as a country.
Sure.
The regulatory framework,
Sure.
what we have in our country is not conducive for entrepreneurs, not encouraging for any fresh ideas.
Sure.
To be frank, I was an entrepreneur in way back in 2000. To be frank, I agree with what you said. The mindset in our country is not in favor of entrepreneurs. When I left my job in an MNC and came out, people blasted me. What are you doing? You had a good job, man. What do you think? And many of them, they cursed me. I said, I go by my thoughts. Eventually, I had to shut my business. I became bankrupt. And that's another story. But then,
We will
from,
also someday.
pardon?
We will definitely learn from that also someday.
Yep. Yeah. Sure. I mean, today, if I'm standing today, my biggest potential or learning is those 5 years.
Yeah.
That taught me what is life.
Yeah.
I learned banking. I learned customs. I learned taxation. I learned whatever need to be done to survive. This is the root cause of one of the areas. Too much of regulation.
Yeah.
And for any entrepreneur, sorry, this is too much. And that is something which I appreciate. Recent times, a lot of encouragements have been given for startups to start off, as well as winding up. Winding up a company was bankruptcy laws were not there.
Sure.
Today we have it, and before 3 years of completion of a company, if you want to wind up a company, it's very easy.
Yeah.
Those days it takes years of effort. So reforms and regulation. The easy way to regulate in India is we ban it. Right?
Yeah.
So classic example is I'm in a committee, Government of India committee for UAV standardization.
Yeah.
Nowadays every week we meet to make sure that a new regulation is in place for UAVs to fly in India.
Love.
So that is why that has happened. If you look at a couple of years back, we decided to ban UAV flying.
Yeah.
So the easy way is just ban it. So I think this is something which probably needs to complete a relook in terms of regulatory framework. Are we regulating or are we destroying?
Sure.
So we need a healthy regulation, professionally managed, conducive environment. And I believe government is doing a lot of great initiatives in this front.
Sure.
If you really want to know the Bureau of Indian Standards building in Delhi, you make a visit, you can see the difference. Today, you feel like you feel like walking into the building.
Yes.
A year before, when I went there last year beginning, I was struggling to get into that building. So there is a change happening on regulatory front, standardization front. Banking reforms is another sector which we need a complete reform to make sure that, the ownership transparency comes into picture.
Sure.
And labor reform, yes. COVID is something, probably if you watch very closely in the last 3 4 months,
Mm-hmm.
I said COVID is the biggest ever disruptor
Yeah.
in the history of mankind of last 100 plus years.
People are actually
Uh,
as it may grow bigger than the depression that we see in 1930s that we heard of, not see. And I have I have personally a lot of scare about it, how things are shaping up now. It really looks very very worrisome from the.
so labor reforms have started in a big way in this country, which is very much important for our next growth plan.
Mhm.
I'll give you a classic example. Our labor laws are, because I've been to these issues, because I had an opportunity to sit on both sides of the game as an employer, as an employee, and
Yeah.
today as a head of company where I am also responsible for labor laws related issues. I do get notices from so many agencies. For I don't even know why I get those notices, because I don't violate any norms.
Yeah.
So these are the areas where probably reforms are required, and the gig economy, what we're talking about today, needs people who can work on a flexible form, where hire and fire policy has to be there in place. Because if you want productivity for an investor, he would need the freedom to hire the right people.
Correct.
And if somebody is not doing his job, definitely that fellow should be fired. I'm sorry to use that word, but then I see many organizations where people are sitting, they join, they're telling, my job is guaranteed, man. You might push me. I'm not going to change because my life is guaranteed. So that has to change. So if you really want, big ticket
Sure.
investments to come into our country.
Yeah.
And the last one is, which is again most important thing, is civil services reforms.
Yeah.
Let me put some water. So this is another area which was civil services sector reforms. Why I am saying it is very important is our civil services again was created by British.
Yeah.
Okay. So police reforms, I forgot to add that part. Police reforms and civil service reforms are the need of the hour. So if you ask me, 5 of this and police reforms would make a big case for India to go to the next era. According to me, these are the 6 areas. That is regulatory reforms, education reforms, banking reforms, labor reforms, civil services reform, and police reforms.
Okay.
Police reforms needs reforms at the state level.
Okay.
So today, if you ask me, last 6, 7 years, at the central level, there are a lot of changes that happen,
Yeah.
but not at the state level. Okay, and the financial condition of most of the state level, budgets are also in a extremely bad shape, and that needs an immediate attention. So 6th one is police reforms. The 7th one is state level reforms.
Reform.
And reform. I
Yeah.
mean, the second wave of reforms is the only answer for us to reboot.
Great. Great. Thank you so much. In fact, I'll take that hint again and I'll join you for the next question, which is around the goal that India has set up for itself. 2.7 trillion now as an economy, $2.7 million, trillion dollars, sorry, and taking an optimistic goal of being a $5 trillion economy by 2025. I mean, this looks little overwhelming. I'm sure we have discussed about the reforms that needs to take in place, but then these reforms taking place simultaneously, growth also happening. We know there are FDIs coming in, but largely to a couple of companies, not everywhere. You know that. But then how exactly this will shape up? What exactly do you think India needs to do if it really wants to get into that kind of economy by the next 5 years? I mean, what do you think about it?
Okay, 5 trillion. It's a good dream. It's a good figure to achieve. But in today's scenario, I think we need to be very realistic that probably it would be a bit over ambitious. But then I am of the opinion that I'm an ambitious guy. I always tell my team that never ever set a target which can be easily achieved. Then it's not a target.
Mm-hmm.
So we need to set a goal which is something which you need to raise your bar every year. So 5 trillion is a good dream to achieve.
Sure.
Maybe we may not push ourselves too much. Yeah, it should be achieved in 2024 or 2025. Maybe 1 or 2 more years it might be required in the current scenario, because in the current financial year, our economy is probably going to contract a bit. Okay. I'll give you some statistics on that. Okay. Probably let me take you to some examples which could give you some idea about where are we with regard to, let me pull out, because these are some of the slides which I have used internally to get an idea about where the world is today. And it is very important for us to understand that part.
Are you sharing a slide? I'm not able to see this.
I'm sharing it now. Yeah.
Okay.
You're able to see my screen now?
I can see the screen. World Economic Outlook Growth Projections.
Yeah, yeah. So this, you can here see different versions of this. But overall, if you look at it, it doesn't look nice. 2020 is all talking about negatives, negatives, negatives.
Negative.
Yeah, every country is going to get into negatives, and the degree probably would get worsen up slightly, or even depending upon which side of the game this country is in already. Further, if you go, there are some more projections you can see where, except China and one or two countries, all of them will be negative. Okay, so this is another projection from World Bank and other agencies. So it is a fact which we need to accept it, that we are going to contract. And in Q1, we have seen Indian economy contracting substantially. No point in blaming government for that. I've seen, some people, blaming government for that. What government can do? Nothing. Okay, government can only, support the people in a short-term basis. They are not hungry. That's all government can do. Put money into their bank accounts for a short time. That's all they can do. But as I told you, probably governments, this is a time where governments come up with strategies that can reboot the country. So that is where actually I was talking about, we need to look at, the so-called winning industries. Okay. So let me take you, because these are all slides I have done within LDRA, because my colleagues have helped me, because I do have a research team inside. Let's look at some of the winning industries. Sure. So if you really want to reboot our economy, these are the areas I strongly recommend our entrepreneurs and corporates to invest on.
Sure.
For example, you know what some of the automotive manufacturers like Mahindra have done.
So for the benefit of the audience here, I'll just name each of these, even though it is visible here. So vaccine development, testing, PPEs, masks, stock market trading, communication and networking, cloud computing, online coaching. That's interesting. App development, we all know, and telemedicine. I think some of the very, very strong, I think this was the pick of the event right now, that these are the winning industries when people and youth like us and people who are watching should definitely concentrate here and think of working out an innovation or probably an entrepreneurship in a domain like this. So thank you, Shinto, for sharing this slide. This was really
I have some more actually in this, and I do have a basic economic principle background for this argument.
Okay.
I don't know how many of you have heard of jumping out of the curve. This came for Nobel Prize in economics. Okay, I am not an economist, but economics and human resource, these are the two passionate subjects for me. Because my argument is, I don't know whether I'm right or wrong, but then this is my end of my 4th decade.
Yeah.
I've realized that if you can unleash the potential of human beings,
yeah,
including myself and the people who I'm surrounded with,
yeah,
in a given context, economic context, success is guaranteed.
Yeah. So unleashing, I'll just stop you there, Shinto. Unleashing a human being into the best capacity that he can produce is a concept of GupshupToInspire. So thank you for checking into this once.
Good, great. So in a given economic context,
yeah,
okay, I stress on that part. The economic context is very important.
Yeah.
So that is why I got passionate about these two subjects. Observe people analyze their behavior, find their motivational aspects, and that varies from individual to individual, age group to age group.
Sure.
Because I interact with sector specific. When I do conduct program for teachers, kids, youth, industry guys, the mindset of each community is different. Now, economic context, why I'm saying is every entrepreneur who is listening to us, I always say, please pick up some basic economic principles. So, and in that, this principle of jumping out of the curve, it came for a Nobel Prize. So I'll explain that for the better understanding everybody, because it was selected for Nobel Prize. That's the reason I'm telling you.
Sure.
So what it does is, in our product life cycle philosophy, to explain it in layman's language, you introduce a product, slowly it gets into the growth trajectory, and after it matures, the trajectory, and then it stabilizes, and then it goes down. So if you don't do anything, for the product to keep going in the market, the product will die. So that is why they do repackaging, re-enhancement, changing color, paint, changing the brand ambassador, all lot of things like Colgate story. Colgate I used to use in my childhood. Even today we use it.
Correct.
Except Marico, our biscuit story, and this one, most of the other products disappeared because they didn't understand how to, build on the top of that, keep the brand live forever. Economy is also like this only. In economy, when you, to understand this further, if you put a stone in a pool, you will see the ripples going, right? Or surrounding ripples, circular ripples you can see. Economy is also like this only. If you put some money, if you put an idea, if you, do some reforms, it starts spreading. And if you pump in some money, the money starts circulating in the market, it reaches more and more people, you see action happen. But if you don't do it on a sustainable basis, what will happen? In a water, you put one stone, that ripple stops after some time, right? So in economy also, it is like this only. Once in a while, on a sustainable basis, somebody has to be putting the stone. So otherwise, what happens is, economy also will go in a circular, in a curve way, and you will see the flattening of the curve, and then it goes down. So if you are an entrepreneur,
explanation, I really love that.
Okay, if you're an entrepreneur, what you should watch is which phase this economy is. Is it going in upward? That goes to sector specific also. This same principle can be taken to say any of these sectors. My sector which I am in right now, is it on an upward path? Has it flattened? Is it on a downward path? So what you should be looking at is when it is on the upward path, when it is about to start, if you are there at the right time, you will be moving along with the curve. Suppose you start at a time when it's in the sinking, or if it is on the downward time, you will also get sunk. There's a possibility. Majority of the time, there's a possibility.
Absolutely.
So as an entrepreneur, what you should look at is keep little bit on your economic fundamentals, keep scanning what is happening in your, your product might be excellent, but then unfortunately, I'll give you an example. You develop a product for the travel industry or an airline industry. Today, you might have a great passion for that industry as an entrepreneur. Because I do spend some time nowadays with startup entrepreneurs because they know my background very well. Okay, one is own startup, other one is an MNC startup where I was the first employee in 2010. And luckily, the second one I could do well, where this Indian entity is celebrating 10th anniversary in July 28. And my team is now bigger than the UK team. Lot of innovations we drive from this office. So from that, what I was telling that, if they are understanding what is really happening, they probably would be able to take a proper decision without getting emotional. I use the word emotional is very, these are the mistakes which I did as an entrepreneur. I started, and within 6 months, the US recession, the first recession came. I'm talking about the .com crash. 2000 May, I started my business. Within 6 months, the US economy went into recession. And September 11, 2001 was icing on the cake. Put the last nail on.
Yeah. People just lost everything.
Yeah. So what ideally I should have done at that time was, if I found it is not going to sustain, I should shut my business, or I should start something else where there is action happening.
Correct.
So as an entrepreneur, I mean, maybe we can discuss this at some other session for entrepreneurs in future, maybe, that, today, if you're running a business, let's not be sentimental. Look at where the action is happening, turn your direction towards that.
Yeah.
So like the Mahindras have done, in the same automotive manufacturing assembly facility, they are assembling ventilators.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
that's a good piece. In fact, all of us should know and remember this.
So let me take you to some more winning industries. This, after seeing all these things, how can you tell me there's no growth happening?
Correct. Online gaming, digital products, data science, cyber security, machine learning, and intelligence, artificial intelligence.
For techies, cloud and cyber is something which is in cyber security and cloud for techies.
Yeah.
And for people who have electronics background, custom made chip design.
Yeah.
Classic example is, last week you heard, Apple coming out and saying that, no more Intel chips. We're going to have our own custom made, SoCs, system on chips, to be driving their, Apple phones going forward. So if you look at, this is, you will find technology getting into more and more invasion into our privacy. That is an interesting observation in the whole thing. Manufacturing, you can see automation happening.
IoT.
Connected systems, robotics, your home theater, live streaming, OTT business.
Yeah.
Whole lot of. So if you ask me,
sure.
When I look at it, I see more positives. I see more positives. Correct. A lot of sectors are doing really well in the coming years. Now the question is, are we having the right skills?
Correct.
Okay? Right skills. For example, today evening, now we are running that panel discussion by Christ Alumini. The topic is reskilling in the COVID era, post-COVID era. Okay. So each one of us probably need to relook into, are we having the right skills?
Yeah.
Instead of getting depressed, look at this as an opportunity to reboot yourself.
Sure.
I'll share you my experience. Sure. I used to travel like every week on an average, one city.
Yeah.
And either within India or outside India, hectic travel, and I used to read like anything olden days. But then of late, I believe the reading came down because of my travel and schedules. COVID is something, for me, it's a blessing in disguise.
Yeah.
I restarted my reading habits. I restarted my exercise routine. I became a very disciplined guy, both morning and evening. So it all depends upon how we see this. Not that, I'm enjoying COVID, but instead of COVID managing us, can we manage COVID? Okay? Can we manage COVID? And look at the opportunities around us. Sure. So that's all I have. And probably I'll stop sharing the thing. We'll go back to.
That was very enriching in terms of information also. Shinto, now in the interest of time, I have 4 questions. We can try to wind up a little quickly here.
Yeah, please.
But these are very, very interesting and deep thought questions. So maybe a crisper response from you in the next 15, 20 minutes can really help us.
Yeah, I think we have covered a lot of fundamental aspects.
Maybe we'll have to just rephrase some of those and then try to cover these questions.
Yeah.
Next is about China's growth strategy so far, being manufacturing centric and then exports heavy. So how exactly this kind of a change can be brought into India, if at all possible? Because a lot of us, in fact, one of the surveys that we did in GupshupToInspire was people felt that it is because they have a communist setup, they can enforce these forced manufacturing and cost labor effective reforms there, which in India is not possible, being a democracy, which is fair enough. So how exactly, if at all, we also want to ramp up our productivity in terms of manufacturing and making it exports heavy, what do you think we can do?
You asked the right question. In fact, there is 2 thoughts which I see in this space. Some people say just follow China.
Yeah.
But then I am of the opinion we might be getting into a wrong direction. China is China. We never can be China.
Yeah.
because we are a democratic country.
Yeah.
We just need to look at what we are good at.
Yeah. Correct.
It is something like, my neighbor is doing something.
Yeah.
Let me copy what he's doing.
Correct.
It doesn't work.
It doesn't.
So every individual, every country need to look at what the country is good at.
True.
What we are good at is actually we are the largest democracy in the world.
Yeah.
And within the next couple of years, we will be the largest country in the world in terms of population. We are going to beat China very soon.
Mhm.
And according to me, it is a strength for me.
In that front, we'll win the race quickly. In that,
Yep. But I'm seeing it is an opportunity for us.
it is
I'm
again.
seeing it is an opportunity for us. It all depends upon how we see it. For me, it's a human capital.
Yeah.
And as far as I'm deploying my capital properly, I'm on the right direction.
I fully.
The third aspect is that, historically, if you look at it, I gave you a gist in the beginning. In 90s, what has happened? Our growth was mostly exports driven, that 18% per annum CAGR we are growing, which is took a beating with regard to sustainability part.
Sure.
Otherwise, if you look at Indian economy, it is a domestic economy.
Yeah.
Domestic consumption is the core of our economy. That is our strength. Unlike China.
Unlike China.
Okay? Chinese economy is driven. Yeah, Chinese economy is driven by exports. We are not driven by exports.
True.
So I'm not saying that we don't need exports. We probably need exports. We need to relook our alignments. We need to look at how to encash the current opportunities, so-called China plus one arguments people are talking about. So we need to be quick in doing that, because why I'm saying this, countries like Vietnam, Taiwan is catching up on that. Mexico is catching up on that. Chile is catching up on that.
Sure.
Even some parts of Malaysia, Myanmar is catching up on that.
Okay.
We also need to reform fast, and I think the time is a key thing.
Okay.
And the sad part with Indians is, I'm sorry to say that we talk a lot and act less. So we need to slightly change our approach. We need to act and talk less.
Sure.
And the third and most important thing is, we probably need to. It is time for India to relook into our own strategic objectives.
Okay.
It is very important, because why I'm saying that context is, when we are surrounded by adversaries, which we have seen in the last couple of weeks,
Sure.
we at this point of time, we need to take a strong stand in either way.
Sure.
Okay, which would help us in making our next destiny.
Sure.
And in many areas, I believe, as a country alone, today's still a scenario on the strategic front I'm talking about.
Sure.
The old approach of going in isolation, it is not going to work. We need to have the right partnerships, like the Quads, what we are talking about, the India, Australia, Japan, US, whatever.
Cohesive, holistic, as again we can call it, and then kind of all of these forces combined can really take
and unleash a series of reforms. Okay.
That's what we. Yeah.
So, and when you unleash the reforms, make sure that it is inclusive.
Sure.
It is not adding to skewed economic disparity in this country, because that is one observation I have.
Sure.
If you don't take care of the bottom of the pyramid, you're probably going to have more problems in the coming years.
Right.
So this is what I would suggest: not to emulate China.
Yeah.
We find our own path. We find our own friends. I use the word right, friends whom we can trust. I think in modern world, the trust is the key thing. So whomever you feel, and at the same time, engage China. You can't ignore them, because I'm of the opinion that they will be the largest economy in the near future. It's only a matter of time.
Would surpass US for sure. The way they are.
Yep.
Their strategy.
So they would, and so we need to engage them. At the same time, this love-hate relationship will continue.
It will be there, I'm sure.
So, and in the corporate world, we call it co-competition. We cooperate and compete.
True. True. So Shinto, quickly jumping on to the question, you have briefly mentioned about Myanmar, Taiwan, Philippines, all of these smaller nations nearby. So what is, and you have been traveling across Southeast Asia. So what is the image that India has in this region? Are we also seen as one like your expansionist China or the growth-oriented China with not considering the neighbors around, or we are like, taken into a different image altogether as a nation which is friendly with its neighbors and maybe has high opportunities, potential, and intellectual capital? So what's the exact image that India carries in this region? Shinto, from your experience.
It's a very interesting question. Actually, I had a different perception about East.
Oh,
But when I traveled and started interacting with them, they like us. They like Indians. And in one of the countries, I went for a defense event.
yeah,
Initially, they didn't admit me. And after a week, I got a mail. You're admitted.
yeah.
Sure, they did the background check. And when I went there, we didn't see any other countries except some Americans.
Sure.
And me and my colleague, we were the only outsiders.
Mhm.
So I went up and asked two of their senior officers,
Sure.
sir, how come you are not invited others into this event? He said, and how come only, I'm from India. Huh?
Okay.
And no other country, it's Australia, actually, I can name it.
Yeah.
Okay. This was an event in Australia. And I asked an officer, he said, hey, man, you're a friendly country.
Oh,
You're welcome. You're welcome to our programs, and we should be able to do much better.
that's great.
Same thing. I went to Taiwan, and I was talking to a couple of guys about some of the initiatives, and they said, and one guy went and further said, if you know your defense minister and other people, why don't you guys put your warships in our port?
Oh,
Why don't you put your warships in our port?
so Taiwan,
And
long demand of BrahMos missile also that they want to, kind of buy from India.
so same way, if you go to Vietnam, I don't know how many of you know that, Vietnam has got a long back, a couple of years back, India gave them a observatory center.
Oh,
It is nothing but, it is there in the public domain. I can talk about it actually.
okay.
It
Okay.
is a ISRO's download link
Mhm.
where using which they can see almost all ship movements in South China Sea.
Oh, lovely.
Okay, real-time basis.
Mhm.
Okay, we have called it as a civilian observatory facility, but then it is not a military resolution.
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay.
but okay, but at least they get what is required.
Sure.
So if you ask me, we are accepted very well. We go to Japan, same thing. They're keen in working with us on multiple fronts. Korea, same thing. So according to me, this is something which I think Indian entrepreneurs should understand.
Okay.
The growth is going to be in the East Asia, Southeast Asia, I call it.
Yeah.
And we need to go with the government's philosophy. The look east. Look east is something really we should look east.
Okay.
And thanks to airlines like Indigo,
Mhm.
to be frank, reaching out to east was a problem. Today we have direct flights to most of the eastern countries from Indian cities.
Yeah.
So more and more flights has to be opened up. The language barriers, like in Taiwan, Chinese is a problem. So we need to probably train people on Mandarin.
Mhm.
Vietnam, we have the language barrier. We probably need to look at complement to what these guys are doing. These are all manufacturing economies.
Okay.
Okay, Taiwan is a manufacturing economy. Vietnam is a manufacturing economy. Malaysia is a manufacturing economy. And if you look at Thailand, again, a lot of manufacturing happening. Indonesia, a lot of manufacturing is happening. So
Correct.
what we can bring on the table is they lack on services capability.
Mm.
Okay, we can augment on the top of what they are doing,
Okay.
and we should not be giving them a threat also, because India is a big country. Compared to some of these countries, we are so huge.
Yeah.
And that is also a problem we have, perception problem, because if you let Indians they will come like locusts and finish off everything. This problem, perception problem, we have in developed countries.
Yeah.
So we should be a bit careful in doing that. As far as we understand their aspirations and they like us, I think we have a
Lovely.
complementary game to do.
That's so good to hear. That's so good to know also. And probably that's the reason. I mean, that's the reason I actually wanted to squeeze and attach the next question to you. Was now you have spoken opportunities and upcoming industries and economies and technologies that we should look after. We are perceived as a friendly nation in Southeast Asia. Combining these two facts, do you think there is an opportunity for Indian startups to do business with them as an import and export? So what should be those? Where exactly Indian startups should look into importing and exporting currently in the Southeast Asian regions? If you can, throw some light there.
Okay, as I told you, now all these countries are in transition phase. Okay, some countries have got their own inherent challenges also. For example, I go to Malaysia. Malaysia, unlike other countries like Vietnam, Vietnam started this manufacturing boom maybe 10, 15 years back.
Sure.
Malaysia is traditionally a manufacturing hub. I'm talking about their history goes back to more than 15, 20 years.
Oh, okay.
Okay, thanks to the previous Prime Minister Mahathir, who made Malaysia as it is today. But then Malaysia is having a different problem today. Their issue is basically they lack skill. Their manufacturing is getting questioned by the Chinese aggression. So they probably will need the right skills to take their manufacturing into the next generation.
Sure.
Okay, and if you go to Taiwan, Taiwan is basically a country traditionally known for hardware manufacturing.
Okay.
In today's world, actually, products are system on chip, software, hardware integrated approach, where software is very important. And Taiwan is not good in software.
Okay.
So for Indian entrepreneurs, we should fill that gap. We should help them to make better products. Okay, there is chance for joint ventures, there are chance for joint initiatives, the chance to become vendors. Only thing is, please learn Chinese. Without learning Chinese Mandarin language, it is difficult to deal with a country like. So if you go to Australia, but again, Taiwan is basically a bit different country. You need to understand how to deal with them. And if I give you a comparison between China and Australia and Taiwan.
Okay.
Taiwan means when they mean 30 minutes, mean 30 minutes. Your meeting ends at 30 minutes.
Okay.
Okay. If they have a lunch break at 1:30 means 1:30 is lunch break.
Okay.
Your meeting stops there.
Okay.
So you need to be aware of that part. You go to, and again, ladies has got a lot of importance in Taiwan.
Oh.
If a lady is sitting in the meeting, make sure that, you give attention to her. Eventually, she might be the one who's taking the call.
Okay.
She might be junior, but then she will take the call.
Oh.
So, okay, you need to understand that part. Many Indians who are going there, I keep telling them, understand these cultural differences.
Sure.
And go accordingly. If you go to Australia, it's an informal way of doing things. Some companies, in between the discussion, they might open a beer bottle.
Okay.
Okay. So don't get into the business straight discussions immediate. You just mirror it. That guy is informal. You be informal. Talk to him everything else under the sun except business. Yeah. And you bring it to a discussion level at some point of time. Not all. I'm talking about majority falls into this informal category.
Sure.
So you need to build that rapport, bring that informality. And every country has got its own advantage. You go to Singapore, it's a different way of doing things. They think twice before anything because it's a costly economy. So you need to be very clear in telling them how much money is involved because they're very worried about the cost factor. Out of all these countries, Singapore is very expensive. So you need to be telling them very clearly because and all these countries, there are other issues also. Malaysia has got something called Bhumiputra, means the son of the land. In Singapore, they have again similar definitions. So certain jobs, certain businesses are allowed only with the locals. Sure. So when you go to Australia, you don't have that issue. But then if it's a government business, again, you need to be tying up with somebody locally.
Correct.
So this is something which I think Indians should understand that, collaboration. I use the word collaboration, partnership, and we need to harness our skills. Indian entrepreneurs should be trained to address this part. Second thing is the industry bodies or trade bodies should help them in this because as a startup guy, I'm telling you, he doesn't have all these expertise.
Yeah.
How can he travel multiple times to learn all these things?
Yeah, of course.
So this is something trade bodies and industry bodies should fix it. that, they should run these kind of sessions, pull in people like me who has been into this market multiple times, share the experience with them. Hey, this is the issue which you should fix it. In this country, these are the problems. And right from, get trained to eat some of their local food along with them.
Sure.
That's very important. It was East now. Food is a big problem.
Yeah.
So for Indians, we need to train. We need to, especially for vegetarians.
Yeah.
Survival in that belt is a challenge.
Yeah. I completely agree.
Australia is different. Australia is still you'll get English food, but
Yeah.
in the rest of the countries, you need to be open. And good part is they're clean. They're clean. You don't get sick so often. Let's be assured.
Definitely.
So there is a lot of option growth happening. As an entrepreneur, I strongly recommend look east. Look east. The reason I'll tell you, I have one interesting slide. I think I have it here. 1 second. Yes, just have a look at this slide. It talks a lot about what is really happening there. Look at this slide. This slide talks about the growth, projected growth of countries in the east side. Okay. No other region in this world, anywhere in the world, is going to give this kind of growth. Even in the post-COVID era, this is the sector area which you are going to see the first bouncing back. Okay. So as an entrepreneur, I suggest look east. Join the government, look east. You have the future there.
Wow, that's a take from this session, and that's the motivation and inspiration that I also have now. We can expand our horizon to think east, and currently, whatever is the thinking right now doesn't look too east. So now I think I'll take that away from the session from you, Shinto. Thank you so much for that. I'll just come to my last question, Shinto, of the day, and it has been a phenomenal discussion going forward. So one last question from you is, how can India nurture a job creating mentality than a job seeking traits? I mean, this is something which would definitely love to learn from you. I'm sure we have covered most of it in our discussion so far, but a crisp answer from you for next 5 minutes would definitely help.
Okay, it starts from our own homes, according to me.
Okay.
Okay, and everybody, if they start thinking one aspect and respect an entrepreneur, okay, he is somebody who creates wealth. He is someone who creates jobs. For whom? For himself and for the rest of the people.
Correct.
Rest of us work salary. Entrepreneur is somebody who creates wealth, who creates jobs.
Yeah.
And both are actually need of the work. So, in my opinion, in our homes, in our classes, in our workplaces, we should start appreciating and encouraging entrepreneurs at all levels, not only in stages when somebody wins a bet, 1 million order, he gets appreciation. You know how many years he would have slogged to become a 1 million PO level? Yeah. And actually, he needs appreciation at that level.
Correct.
His family members, his kids, and I have gone to the journey. That's what I'm telling. The second thing is very important is policy changes. We have done a lot of policy changes. I'll give you an example. What has stopped Flipkart getting registered in India? Almost all new startups, high-tech startups or big-time startups, they're not registered in India. They are not Indian companies. They have a base in India, started by Indians, but not registered in India.
Yeah.
So we need to bring in the right policy changes, which encourages entrepreneurs to register their company and claim it is a 100% Indian company. What is stopping us? Okay. I believe a day will come where the problem with us is, in my opinion, we don't believe in ourselves. We should have faith in ourselves. And that goes back to our British era, thoughts. Whenever we see, sorry to use a different color person making a statement on the stage, we say, Talia, Talia, Talia. Yeah. Our own guy talks the same thing.
Yeah.
he's a neighboring guy. Yeah. He's our man. He won't be good.
Yeah.
So we probably need to start appreciating Indians.
Yeah.
We're not bad. We are not bad. To be frank, we are one of the best brains in the world.
Yeah.
IQ-wise, we are second in the world, second to Jews. India is the largest brain pool of the world, which other countries accept it. We have a problem. Okay? We have a problem in accepting our Indians. So that is where I said.
Very interesting point.
The mindset shift has to happen. Third, the most important thing is, which I have learned from my own failures, I think. We are very bad in celebrating failures. Okay, I use the word celebrating failures is the starting of your success.
Sure.
I celebrated royally. I became bankrupt. I'm proud to say that I became bankrupt. But many people are very hesitant to say that. For them, it is a social stigma. Yeah. And so the failure is the one, according to me, teaches the best lessons in life.
Correct.
And every Indian should understand that, the staggering capabilities. And today I tell my people in my organization, keep trying anything, something new every month. 10 things you try, 2, 3 will be big success, 2, 3 will be average, 3, 4 will be flops. But you should understand this. This is the basic principle of venture capital funding.
Absolutely.
And VCs putting money also, they go by the same equation. And finally, one more thing. For an entrepreneur, I had one slide, which I think probably I'll bring it.
Please.
Okay, and I prepared specifically for this issue. Where is that?
It came for us sometime, yeah.
Yep.
It's not visible to me.
There you are.
Yeah, startup ecosystem.
So this is one area I think as a country we need to focus a little more. I think a lot of work is happening on accelerators, investment climate creation. And the last part I wanted to mention was we Indians should learn the art of exiting.
Okay.
And I say for any startup, when you are starting a business, you should have an aim. This is my perspective.
Sure.
You should have an aim. Starting, growth, exit.
Correct.
If you are a smart entrepreneur, you should have one day a plan to exit.
Exit.
Never ever die with there are two philosophies. One is you start it, you build it, you die with it.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, that is one approach. Nothing wrong with that approach.
Yeah.
But if you have that entrepreneurial bug, what is stopping you from start, grow, exit? Keep starting, grow, exit. Because your scale is basically producing, which creative production is your strength, which many people don't have it.
Correct.
So as a country, we need more of such people who can keep producing, because believe me, the managerial mindset, the employment mindset which we have is not meant for startups. You ask a lady who was born to pregnancy, when I was watching my wife, startup is also like that only.
Oh.
So a lady become pregnant.
Yeah.
She passed through a lot of struggles, but the satisfaction she gets after the delivery, it's ultimate. No other creativity gives that kind of satisfaction.
Unfathomable.
So this is something, if an entrepreneur understands this part, of that his strength is basically creation. His strength is basically building. His strength is giving smile to in others' faces.
Correct.
Rather than he keeps smiling. Okay. So I'm a strong believer in that. Actually, there's nothing wrong with the other thing. That I built a company. I sit there for a lifetime.
Correct.
Fair enough, no issues. But I am looking for the second category of people.
Correct.
Called the serial entrepreneurs who can really make an impact in this country.
Correct.
So, and I'm sure the future is with the youngsters, the students, and this slide actually I created 2 days back for a program for faculties. I told them that every university become a startup ecosystem.
Yeah.
Every faculty should get fascinated with entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
You should be able to cultivate that culture in our campuses, because the future of this country lies with who can create wealth and jobs, and that lies with entrepreneurs only. So our education system has to support. Who can support that? Again, faculties only.
Yeah.
Faculties. Our at home, as I told you, it starts with home. Our mindset towards, if my husband or wife is starting something, the partner should support it.
Yeah.
Okay? And that is the crux of the thing.
Sure.
So I'm pretty sure that the mindset shift is happening already.
Yeah.
When in 2000 when I started, people were not appreciating. I'm so happy today's startup guys. Many of them say, "Hey, my wife is very supportive. My kids are, actually packing things for me."
Sure.
They actually, most of the startups happens in a garage.
Yeah.
It happens in a garage.
It happens.
It happens sometimes in bedroom because space nahi hai. So
In garage, it happens in a dorm room, it happens sometimes happens in roadside, it happens those ways.
so that is the spirit. That is possible only with the startup guy and an entrepreneurial mindset. Which and my first time when I left my job, I was cleaning my floor with and my wife, she's a school teacher, traditional mindset person. She said, left an MNC job, now you're cleaning the floor. I said, I enjoy it. Yeah. So that's the spirit you should have an entrepreneur. I mean, I still have that mindset. Yeah. I tell people that, any job what you're doing is worth.
Yeah.
That is something which we need to learn from the Westerners.
Yep.
In India, that problem is there, that, if you lift something, if you clean the office, there is something wrong. And 4 years back, I shifted my office, an MNC company. We have money. Yes. But when I was shifting, I was along with the shifting boys. Sure. One of my guys asked me, Shinto, why are you doing this? Yeah, we have employees, we can hire people. Sure. I said, no, man, I enjoy doing this. I'm a person who came from a typical hardcore heavy lifting background, from an agriculture background. I still believe at this stage I enjoy this kind of jobs. Yeah. And when I'm with you guys, it's a different spirit for you guys. I know that. That's why I'm with you.
Kind of a joy and this kind of internal seeking is definitely something which is the mentality that we spoke about, is the job creating mentality, or celebrating failure, or maybe deciding on exit points. These are some of the traits very rightly pointed out, Shinto. Awesome description of all the questions that we were seeking from you, and wonderful takeaways. If I start making note, I'm sure we'll have a recording as well. We have so many takeaways from the session, which definitely has enriched us. So Shinto, thank you so much. This brings me to an end of this very informative session. And I cannot thank you enough for giving time out on your weekend. And I'm sure our viewers, especially from the working class, entrepreneurs, college grads, will definitely take a lot of inputs for the individual growth. So Shinto, once again, on behalf of entire community of Gupshup to Inspire, the ecosystem of unleashing that best part of yourself, which you just now kind of a little while ago spoke. I also thank you, Shinto, for sharing an enriching time with all of us.
Thanks, man. I really appreciate even whoever is going to listen to us. And more than that, what I appreciate you is that, you guys think about inspiring others. You said, your own philosophy.
Yeah.
What is required in today's world is exactly the same thing.
Correct.
First, we have to inspire ourselves.
Yeah.
Okay, which is very important. And the second thing is be inspiring others.
Correct.
And that will drive growth, positivity in and around us.
Yes.
So I wish you, all of you guys, whomever has listened to me, and we should appreciate the pain he has taken, because he picked up the right questions after fully studying my background. Because that makes a big difference. Because I've given several interviews in the past, and to be frank, they have not even seen my background. I had a lot of blunders and mistakes in my life, and they never picked it. And they were talking about that subject only, but then they never digged into that.
Yeah.
So I really appreciate, you did your homework.
Thank you so much.
Which brought out the best in the discussion, and wish you guys all the best.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Once again. Thank you.